warning. What you are about to see is... it's bad. Like, let's be honest, it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but I wanted to have this still archived as the first episode of this new show that we're going to try to do every week. Next week, like, I know the format was kind of weird. I kind of want to make it more conversational, and have, like, topics instead of just running through all the teams. But I feel like the spirit of the show, the, like, in the basement, like, idiot giving his perspective on things, ended up being really good. So if you guys have any comments, any suggestions, besides, obviously, the format's going to be a little bit different, stick with it. It should get better. Thank you.
Clip times. Welcome to the Bronze Perspective, the show where we offer the lowest form of analysis to the highest level of League of Legends gameplay. Well, who are we kidding? It's the LCS. It's not the highest level. We're not over an EU. Alright, we start off this week talking about Cloud9 in sole possession of first place with a convincing 4-0. You know, for a team that Reddit has consistently losing the offseason, they always seem to put together a pretty good roster, and I think this season's no different. With Sven and Vulcan a clear upgrade in the bottom lane, this team is finally able to reliably play through any lane to look for a carry performance. Sorry, Sneaky, seems like better bot truly does win. Blabber's also looking good for the time being, but who knows if that'll be different when his lanes inevitably start feeding. Being honest though, I do happen to be a Cloud9 doubter, and with that, I have to say, I think they're going to do well in the regular season. Probably first or second, easy in the normal season, and then lose in playoffs, again, whether that being semis or finals. On the brighter side, though, C9 does have a tendency to get rid of players right before they fall off the face of the earth with their skill, and though time will tell, I think they did that with two certain players that we'll get into later when we talk about Evil Geniuses. Overall, I think this roster has a very high skill floor, with a relatively low skill ceiling comparing to other teams like Liquid or TSM, which works out well in their favor because their median play will be so high, but when it comes to international success or even playoff success at that point, it might be too early to tell just how good this roster could be. On a somewhat unrelated note, I am looking forward to Sven's redemption arc, as personally I felt he was somewhat of the villain role in TSM. And making his transition to a likable frontman will actually be a good change. I feel like with him having so much of an ego, and then kind of being a dick to Jensen in that like finals thing, on top of getting pulled in by Skarner and having that be like the biggest throw in like League of Legends history, I kind of think that God damn it. All right, give me a second here. This is the part where we take a break, as I can't keep up the act. Give me 2 seconds. Still, you suck. As I feel that Sven was kind of an asshole, let's be honest. Looking at another team with the highest skill floor is the first in our two-way tie for second place with a scoreline of 3-1, starting with Team Dignitas. Look, I was excited for this roster in the offseason, rating them fairly highly against the general field of people who were rating them like 6th or maybe even 7th. And I do have to say that after this week's loss to FlyQuest, I can see where their concerns lie. The main argument against this team working out was what happens if Huni and Froggen don't work well together, and from this loss, you can see it doesn't look good. Everyone knows that Huni's usually a feast or famine player, and that if he loses lane, he loses the entire fucking game, and we found that to be especially true after an early death to a gank that made him look for unnecessary desperation plays that he might not have done if he was ahead, or even in lane. The next question mark goes to Froggen, who, year after year, we wonder if he's actually good on non-Froggen champions, also known as control mages. And let me tell you, after this game, we can safely assume that that's probably the case. When this man played Echo, it looked like mine wasn't the only bronze perspective in that game. Look, stick to mages, and Dignitas might have a chance at top 4 this split, but this team feels like a very meta-dependent one, where if it leans in the favor of the solo laners, then they could be formidable foes on the Rift. But if not, well, maybe the preseason expectations were right about this team. The shining light, though, is a young Johnson in the bot lane, who is already looking to be a beast of a North American talent, maybe even one of the best that we've seen in years. That is, unless, of course, the team falls off a fucking cliff mid-season and he looks more like a Deathly or Viper. One who's not bad in most games, but definitely mid to bottom of the pack in overall terms of skill. Luckily for him, my expert analysis says that shouldn't happen. This is where we pause to blow our noses. Speaking of Viper, that makes a semi-decent transition into the other team, 3-1 team, FlyQuest. Look, I'm going to be honest. I had this team in my 10th place power rankings, and I don't know anyone who even had these guys as a playoff team, let alone top 4. But they're defying expectations in the early season, as the only team who have lost so far is Team Liquid. Santorin is looking like an actual player again, and with a few exceptions, this team is looking like a dark horse for top 4, or maybe even finals. Though if that happens, that's gonna be really sad for every other team who they beat out. They do have some clear decision-making issues, like Viper mortalting it against Double Lift, but honestly, they don't look half bad in a league where preseason top 4 CLG is dropping the ball big time. This might be a FlyQuest chance to snag some time in the limelight, until they're once again falling off the face of the earth in summer. Macro seems to be this team's strong point, since, let's be honest, unless they're going up against bottom-rung teams, they're not going to consistently be winning their lanes. This team has an admittedly low skill floor with an average at best ceiling. We can only assume it's a matter of time until they crash under pressure, or fly, above expectations. That was horrible. A side tangent from their Tree Quest marketing strategy, by the way. Like, screw evil geniuses and their evil corporate BS. This is actually how you do marketing. And I think other teams need to take a page out of their book, because not only is it good for the environment with planting all of the trees for the wins and the kills and the ocean drakes, I've never actually seen Twitch chat and Reddit so enamored with the marketing of a team. There's literal Reddit threads on how many trees have been planted. Okay, well, where do we start with Immortals? Nowhere. Because this team was 9th place on my power rankings, and to be honest, this might be the only one that I get right at the end of the season. Yeah. In a 4-way tie for 3rd, this team might be the worst team in the league if CLG doesn't have anything to say about it. With a confusing roster that, even on paper, looks bottom tier, it's surprising that this was the team that Riot let back into the LCS. Ica looks like a... we're maybe the worst mid in the league, which is saying something in a league with Ryoma, and no natural synergies between players to think of. Their 2 wins come from Golden Guardians, who we'll get to later, and what might have been the worst game of professional League of Legends I have ever seen, and a grueling 60-plus minute win against a disappointing Week 1 TSM. The French definitely need a surrender button with this washed-up academy-level team. What's even worse is the inevitable exposure of Xmithy as an average juggler, whose legacy as one of the most winning players domestically will be tarnished by this embarrassment of a roster. The only hope for this team is, in my opinion, to out-macro bottom-tier teams when it comes to mid-late game, and hope for maybe the 6th spot in playoffs, and to get a better roster in summer. The floor and ceiling are so low for this team that it looks like that hallway in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Who knows, though? Maybe we can have a French Revolution and see them reach my predicted 6th place peak. That was water for legal purposes. Just because I'm drinking out of a mason jar does not mean that it's moonshine. The second of our four third-place teams is 100 Thieves. We listened to Papa Smithy. That should be it for the section. We got debated, boys. The nepotism that hit Immortal's French roster is the same that reeks on this Ryoma mid-choice. Like, honestly, what did we expect from an OCE player, man? All the good ones got shipped to EU because, look, Ryoma is not cutting it in this team. He looks terrible. It makes me wonder why they just didn't get DeMonte or Powelter because, oh my god. Watching him makes me want to live on a deserted island with no food and just, like, starve to death slowly and painfully. He's that bad. Like, okay, this team is fine on paper, but if you have a weak lane, it should not be your mid lane. Couple that with a passive bot lane and a Meteos who looks the worst that he has in years, maybe even ever, and you could have a roster that looks middle of the pack at best, and realistically bottom tier. Like, I get that spring doesn't mean anything except for first place, but saying that this is the best team you could come up with is disheartening at best, and when players like Someday and Cody Sun are eternally stuck on bottom tier LCS teams, when they could realistically jockey for a top spot on an easy playoff team, it's sad. This team has a low skill floor but a hard to gauge ceiling, admittedly not knowing the full extent of Ryoma's talents, and whether or not Meteos is actually going to turn on the monitor this split. How am I doing so far? Is it good? Is it at least somewhat entertaining? It's better than my normal streams, let's be honest. It's okay. It's fine. I do have a lot to refine still, but I think the format's pretty cool going through all of the teams. I just think I need to work on it better. I have another section at the end, but I think it's fine. Yeah, yeah. TSM, the talent suppression machine, strikes again as this prospective top 3 team is the third in our tie for, well, third. Yes, they made it. The expectations for this roster were high to start out with, as Kabe, Biofrost, and Dardoch were all hype pickups in the offseason. Unfortunately for them, going 0-2 in the first week was the exact perfect way to quench the hype, as this team played in the earlier mentioned worst professional League of Legends game that I've ever seen from a major region, then following that up with a loss to Team Liquid, who had a substitute jungler, and when one of your improvements in the offseason was your jungler Dardoch, who right now looks like a middling at best jungler, is not the best way to start the split, and a good way to cast doubt on any and every win in the near future. And their 2 wins this week, it was Broken Blade, who carried the entire team on his back in both games, with incredible performances, while Dardoch himself did everything possible to throw said games. Bjergsen, who is apparently sick, and definitely showing that, if it's even true at all, this man shows that even titans must fall, and I feel that, in this way, though maybe not as fast, it's going to be the same tarnishing of a legacy that we will see in Xmithy. The team has a mid-tier skill floor, but admittedly a championship and beyond ceiling if they can get their synergies together, which, hopefully for the brand's legacy, which is declining along with Bjergsen's, will work out in the end. Oh, and if you're wondering why I didn't mention their bot lane, it's because they do nothing every fucking game. Speaking of bot lanes, though, this brings me to the surprise 4th team of the 3rd place tie. Going 2-2 is Team Liquid. Okay, this is the one section that I have a lot to talk about. People say we shouldn't pay too much attention to their performances or losses since Brox isn't playing yet, and I wholeheartedly disagree. Look, here's my thought process on this. If a team like TL doesn't have the macro to win every game, even without a jungler that's good, because here's the thing: you should realistically be able to slot any jungler who's decent into this roster, and they should still be able to win every single game because their other players are so good. But the fact that their macro was so Xmithy dependent, it really makes me worried for how good this team's going to be, and if they're just going to be able to slot Broxa in, which I don't think they're going to be able to. That also brings up the question of when Brox is going to get here, because he's not going to be here on week 3, which means that the earliest he's going to be here is week 4. Which means that every other team had over a month of practice to work together, so they're already in mid-season level when they Team Liquid is just going to meet each other and start playing for the first time. There's no player that I think could fit into that roster besides bringing back Xmithy, which they can't do, that would actually make this team any good. Unfortunately, this means that it's the curse of 4 again, because Liquid, right now, isn't even in the running for 5 in a row. With a potential MSI title as a ceiling, I think this team, with Broxa, with practice, will be NA's best international chance. But at this point, even getting a chance is going to be a huge struggle. Special note, look for the fan hate as this roster trips on the way to 5 in a row. Is this all part of their evil plan for LCS domination? I doubt it, as EG is in a two-way tie for 8th place and 1-3. Cloud9's Twitter account said it best. We scammed EG. And honestly, that should just be the section. EG got fucking scammed, dude, by every single team who they took a player from. Look, we'll start up in the top lane. Kumo. Just because a player comes from Cloud9 Academy does not mean that they are going to be good. You got lucky with Licorice and Zazel. I mean, Keith is on Cloud9 Academy, and we'll talk about Keith later. Look, this guy is the worst top laner in the league by far. It's unfair. It's like putting a child in the ring with Conor McGregor, right? It's just, he's completely out of his element. He's completely outclassed by every single top laner in this league. It's really sad. You go into the jungle with Svenskeren, when he doesn't have lanes and synergies that he can inherently work with, you see that this MVP jungler is going to be exposed, just like Xmithy. When you put these guys who aren't mechanically good, are as good as these younger junglers, into a team that doesn't have the synergies of a couple of years being built up, then, you know, they're not going to be that good. Jizuke, feast or famine player. He looks amazing in the wins that he actually gets, and terrible in the losses that he takes. Then you go down, you have Bang. Bang has never been good in North America. Bang was good in Korea, I guess. I personally never saw any of its games. But look, you have Bang and you have Zazel. And Loco Doco brought this point up. And he was right. They are showing the worst of each other in this lane. This lane looks horrible. This team looks absolutely abysmal. And as someone who people had them as a dark horse for top 4, honestly, I think it's going to be lucky if they get into playoffs this year. Okay, look. The real meat of the EG talk, same with FlyQuest, is the branding. It sucks. Let's be honest. Forcing the evil stuff on players who don't really embody that doesn't make sense. The only thing that they've done is, like, have Jizuke hold a fucking flamethrower. Ooh, that's so evil. People, you know, they're holding flamethrowers and laughing. It doesn't mean anything. Look, it's disappointing because they promote it so hard and they don't actually do anything with it. They could have spun it a different way. They have their CEO coming in talking about murdering kittens. Like, what the fuck is that, dude? No one knows how to promote this brand properly. Not even the fucking, not even the fucking CEO. So it's really like, why would you stick with this? FBI open mid. Okay, look, Golden Guardians. I've always had a soft spot for them ever since summer of 2018. Right, that roster, it tugged at my heartstrings, and I've been a fan of the team ever since, and it's always been disappointing because they've always put together a shitty fucking roster because that team is a bottom bin organization. It's horrible. Look, let's just talk. We'll start out with Hanser, okay? This guy has no macro awareness whatsoever. His mechanics are okay. He's a serviceable top laner. You could put him on a top tier team, and he'd probably keep it at the same level, wouldn't bring it down, wouldn't bring it up. It'd be okay. Right? Closer. This man is single handedly trying to carry every fucking game of Golden Guardians that they play on his back. And oh my god, I feel really. Get this man a chiropractor at the end of the split, because this dude is really good. That's the sad part about this team. This team has three really good players, and it's always, or not really good, but like three serviceable players, like three playoff players. And every single time that Golden Guardians makes a roster, it's always the bot lane that is shit. Last year, you had definitely an Ole. It didn't work out. You have FBI and Huhi. Didn't work out. This year, we have FBI and Keith. You're not going to tell me that you couldn't buy Diamond from C9? Diamond would have been way better than Keith. Look, I understand, you guys. It's all about the bargain. It's all about the budget, right? You guys are going to the fucking flea market to shop for your players. But holy shit, dude. I love Keith. He's one of my favorite personalities. He seems like a really sweet dude. He's really cool. The content that he's in is really nice. But he is not a shot caller. He is not a big macro player. And you can see it in his movements in the map. You can see it just through his ward placement, through his not. He doesn't understand how to play support because he been playing it for 2 months. But here's the thing. It would be better if they had an actual support in Academy. But they don't. They have fucking Huhi playing support in Academy. So you have two role-swapped players playing support, so they can't actually teach each other what they know because they don't know jack shit. So what's the point of keeping Huhi number one and then putting Keith into support? It makes no sense. Okay, look, let's talk about skill floor. It's so low that I swear to God, their coach, fucking Inero, is gonna trip over something, fall into it, and get a concussion. Look, if this team gets a better bot lane, I could see top 6. Oh no, sneezing. I could see top 6 with this team, okay? Like, it's not that hard, because Golden Glue, serviceable mid. Hanser, serviceable top laner. Jungler, Closer, really good, right? Closer is actually hardcore, like, he's smurfing on this team. It's really sad. He's trying to carry this dog shit team. But FBI, he's not good. You tried it last year. He was an academy player. He doesn't need to be in the LCS. Keith, look, man, you could have a wonderful career streaming or coaching or something. Don't fucking play the game. Like, you're middling, bottom of the pack, like ADC, and then you're like platinum best support, okay? You're not good. I love you. I love the team, but come on, guys. Actually field a good roster, and it'd be really good. Our last team, finally, I know. CLG. Surprising for those of you who haven't been paying attention, but CLG, also known as Free LG, I mean, that doesn't even start to bring up the problems with this roster. Look, they have gone 0-4. The worst start that you could possibly go. And most of their games don't look close. Okay? Smoothie looks bad since no one follows up on his calls, right? Crown has never looked good in NA. Wiggly trolls every game, and Ruin is, well, just ask Dom, Ruin is shit. This team was supposedly going to be top two based on roster moves. Like on paper, everyone, their mother was like, CLG, woo. But like I said, they're the only team to go 0-4. I doubt they're even going to make it to playoffs at this point. Do you know how? I think only like 5 teams have gone from 0-4 to playoffs. This team has no synergies. Smoothie, there was a play that everyone was flaming Smoothie for where Wiggly was coming up in the jungle behind him, if you look, and Ruin was up in the top lane, and he showed. He shouldn't have showed, number one. And then number two, Wiggly should have followed up on that or something. They should have all died together. Or the communication, you can see that Smoothie's trying to make plays, but it's not the plays that the rest of the team are going for. And so he's making calls and no one's following up on them, and so he's gonna look like shit, and that's really bad because I think the calls that he's making are really good. So it's really disappointing. Wiggly has fallen off the map skill wise. It's really sad. Crown, I don't know why people sign Crown. Like, he wasn't good on Optic. I don't know why people say that he was good on Optic. He wasn't good on Optic, just straight up. And he's never looked good in NA. I don't think he'll ever look good in NA. Please, organizations, stop signing Crown. And Ruin, Ruin is, he's a player. It's really sad. Okay, well, this has been, and for those of you who are watching live, stick around because I'm playing actual games after this, probably. But this has been the first installment of the Bronze Perspective. Thank you guys for watching, and remember that at this point, if we're lucky, we're going to see Dardoch explode on stage after they go 0-4 in the next 2 weeks. Thank you guys. Wait, I don't have an end screen. Pretend that